I have
Hello.
managed to press the record button. I'm so brilliant. I can't imagine it. So here I am, Frank Foley, another one of my Stories of Our Lives interviews with fantastically generous people who come on and agree to speak to me about themselves, which is pretty cool if you actually think about it, but in a different way, not the normal stuff. And I've got this fantastic lady. Look at the smile on her face. I've got this fantastic lady. Actually, I didn't check in with her before we came on recording to say that, because the first thing I'm going to talk about is your name. So,
Yeah.
so is it Louis?
Liu.
Liu. I've been saying
Yeah.
it wrong for the whole week. So that's brilliant. Liu. So,
Even people who know it still get it wrong.
love
Fine.
that.
It
We
just
got
pops out there. Yeah.
So we got Liu Batchelor with us, and you're going to find out over the next 40, 50 minutes, whatever it is, that she's just an incredible person. I'm so, really buzzed to talk to her. So let's dive in. Hi, hello,
Hello.
Liu. Hi.
Hey.
So let's dive straight in. I want to dig in the weeds a little bit and find out a bit about your childhood and everything, and find out where you've come from to this like incredible journey. I can't wait to talk about it. But first of all, let's deal with the name, because I'm fascinated about identity and the kind of things that mark us. That maybe at the beginning of our lives we don't have much control in, like our name for a start. So tell us about your name. Tell us about how
So it's actually there's quite a lot to it, which always makes it interesting. Starting off, both my parents are from Kent. A lot of people expect me to have Chinese relatives, and I don't. They basically worked in language. They're Jane and Kevin. They worked in a language school, and there was a student teaching English as a foreign language in Canterbury, and there was a student called Liu, half Chinese, half Italian. Hence, there's an accent on it, which I guess is the Italian twist. And they liked it, and they went, "Oh, we'll pinch that." Much to my grandparents' dismay, going, "Oh my God, you can't call it that, poor thing." But it all seemed to fit. There was like a number of coincidences. So I was born on Chinese New Year.
Wow.
My parents aren't into opera particularly, but they, shortly before I was born, Opera Turandot came on the radio, and
Brilliant.
The heroine is called Liu. And so they were like, "Oh my God, this is amazing. This is like a sign." And then the final weird thing was when I was born, the midwife apparently said, "Oh, have you got any Indian or African relatives?" And they were like, "No, why?" Because basically I've got a Mongolian blue spot, which is on my back. And basically it's kind of faded now, but as a child, it was really strong. It looks like a bluey bruise, and I was born with it. And it's, common in Indian and African babies.
Wow.
So, and then it's a bit like, whoa, where did that come from? But so I guess it all seemed to
awesome.
make sense.
Wow, I love that. That's so cool. Do you know what? Straight off the bat, I think what's really fascinating about, I'm just fascinated about human experience and how we live our lives, and maybe where we're, that it kind of leads into where we're going now with all the technology that we have and everything. I'm really interested in how we thrive and how we just be human. But what I find fascinating about what you said is that, how often do we in our lives make judgments? We're all walking around think we're quite rational, and we make judgments because certain things happen to line up, probably coincidentally, but we go, "Oh my God, huge omen."
Exactly. I think, and we put meaning on it, don't we? Because I think it kind of feels nice to have that meaning, and it's nice to be able to tell that story rather than going, "Oh, my parents are just weird and gave me an odd name," to go, well, there's a story behind it. And
that's so good. I love that. Yeah, I think that's really interesting, but that really definitely kind of tracks down into a much deeper point to me about being human, is that we seek purpose, we seek meaning out, don't we? We kind of got that kind of brain that wants to put a couple of pieces of information together and go, somehow that's meaningful to me. And it's really
meaning making machines.
Definitely.
I
love it. So first of all, I've got to do this. Oh my God, I'm so on it today. So I do this thing where right at the beginning I'm going to ask you about something. I'm going to get you to do whatever you do with it, but you're going to tell me at the end of the interview. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you, so don't say anything now. I'm just going to ask you. No, you don't have to write it down. It's very simple. I'm just going to ask you to, at the end of the interview, tell us a story about a song that is meaningful for you in some way.
A song?
Yeah. Or a piece of music, a song, whatever it is, something that's meaningful for you. Tell us at the end.
Okay. Oh no,
cool.
That's going to be going around the back of my mind. Yeah.
Cool. That's so cool. Excellent. I love that. Right, here we go. So let's figure out, like, you know, for you to share with us, because what I really want these interviews to be is a deeper look, you know, apart from the kind of Instagram, hi, you know, my life's pretty cool. You know, who is Liu Batchelor? You know what I mean? Have you always been Liu Batchelor?
Yes.
Okay, so take us back to 5, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old, wherever you want to go. What were you like as a kid? What was family life like for you?
I think a lot of people are surprised, given how much speaking I do in the context of doing radio and doing things like this, and I'm very comfortable to stand up. I was really quiet as a kid. I guess what sums it up is my mum always used to say, I wish I could see Liu's thought bubble, because you could tell I had all these ideas going around in my head,
right?
But I never said them out loud. And to be honest, to maybe jump forward a bit,
yeah, do it.
Looking back and to look where I am now, I think that in that feeling that I had of not being able to express myself through my words, and like as a kid I had speech therapy, and you know, looking back, I don't think it was a thing I was particularly worried about, but I think even subconsciously it was. That it was like verbal expression wasn't a thing, and that feeling of not being able to express yourself. And you know, for me it came through in loads of other ways. Like I used to paint, I was very creative, I did lots of sport, I was expressing myself through other means, but verbal expression wasn't my thing. And where I am now, this idea of, and this I guess you call it kind of quest to find my verbal expression and to speak and to share what's in my heart and in my soul, but also to kind of craft the art of that. Like, for example, I went to my first poetry workshop the other day, and it was completely out of my comfort zone. So my experience as a kid, I think, was this, in one way probably seemed quite expressed, but in other ways for me not feeling self-expressed. And that's put me where I am today in this. Everything I do, when I look back at it and you look at the core of the meaning, like you were saying, it often comes down to expression and how do we help people get their message out. And you know, that desire when you're like, that frustration of, I've got something I want to say, and I kind of open my mouth and it comes out as gobbledygook and everyone goes, what? And I guess as a result, I ended up being, I guess a lot of the stuff I've done because I couldn't tell people, I'd tell people my idea, or I wouldn't because I felt like I couldn't. So I would have to do it. It's that kind of I couldn't tell people, so I had to prove what my idea was. And then and at the end, like I remember my teachers always giving me funny looks when I came up, oh, my project, I want to do this. And then by the end they were like, oh, it's pretty good. Yeah, you've done, but they didn't get it at the beginning every time. And I felt I had to prove my ideas through action. So it was good in that it's meant that I'm very good and very dedicated when I set about doing something.
Right.
But it's also meant that I know and I'm aware that that's just to cover up an inability to verbally express it.
Wow, that's so awesome. You've basically encapsulated, you know, that saved me awkwardly trying to draw so much out. You've just done it so beautifully, because that's what I'm interested in where we've come from. Because, you know, we've come from somewhere, but we have lots of stories about that. And the stories may be, you know, I think stories are my thing. And stories are beautiful because they are based on some reality, but they are largely fictional. You know what I mean? And that's a beautiful kind of paradox in a way. And it's really tricky to, you know, to talk about who we are. What I love about what you did was you've done it. You've laid it out. There is that link, you know, that I was like this as a kid. I can look back and see, you know, I can kind of map that through. That's really fascinating.
Yeah. And I find it fascinating because a lot of the stuff I do now is I can't help myself, and I get told off like on nights out for kind of like coaching people. I'm like, I'm just fascinated with how you got to where you are now based on who you were, and some of the things that you said to yourself were wrong or were bad as a kid, and all the things you're constantly trying to prove to yourself that you are good enough in certain areas. And we all do it, and you can almost, if you can pinpoint or kind of either hear or get someone to see for themselves what maybe a challenge was for them at a young age, you can almost say, well, that's your business, or that's what you're really good at. Those are your strengths because you've spent your whole life trying to overcome them. Like, I love when I heard that Tim Ferriss talking about, he's kind of a bit like OCD and obsessed with efficiency and everything like that, which has led him to follow his journey in finding out how to be more organized, how to be more efficient, which has made him amazing at what he does. It all came from his personal anxiety around not being organized. And you go, all we want is to, I guess, get over the certain things for ourselves that we find challenging, but it gives, because we can relate to it, because we feel it ourselves, we can relate to other people. So we also have this, like comedians, they say all comedians, the reason they want to make people happy is because they know how it feels to be sad and they don't want anyone else to feel like that. If we can get clear on what that is for ourselves, we can find what our calling or whatever you want to call it is, or what our contribution in life is, because we get it.
I think that's really, really fascinating, and that's really come up over the last few interviews we've been doing, is just people getting to a point in their lives, and then some of them consciously, myself, spending a lot of time being very intellectual and serious when I'm really at my core just want to harmonize. I grew up in a pub and I just want to harmonize with people. I just want everybody to be friends, and then speaking to other people, people, some of them not realizing that they're recapturing, or if you can recapture, they're tracing back to something as a kid and they're recreating that. Some of them know they're doing it and some of them don't. And it's really beautiful, to see and to go, wow, do you see that pattern there? That's really, really interesting. Because I think, there's a larger point, and maybe you can speak to this, is the larger point there about there's something in that pattern that something happens to us as we socialize and we, as we go through our socialization and we become adult, and then there's like a way of being that sometimes we don't fit into the way of being that the world wants us to. And then we find out who, like you said, which is so brilliant, it's like you find out, the conversations you were having as a kid, or what you were in dialogue with the kid and you didn't even know it, but you kind of find your way back to that, and in that there's a kind of freedom, and that's really interesting. It's like I don't know if you've probably said it all, so we don't really need to go there, but I mean, oh my god, these conversations blow my mind all the time, because we immediately get into the real stuff about being, about being human. So let's just flesh it out a bit more. So siblings,
I've got a brother.
Siblings, brother. Okay, relationship. Relationship with brother.
So he's 6 years younger than me. So I guess it was one of those weird, not old enough to be a much maturer sibling, but not young enough to be kind of close. So although it wasn't like we didn't get on, I wouldn't say we kind of spent a whole lot of time, because we were in that kind of weird difference. But I get on with him really well now. And really nice to see, I guess, what, like we were saying about family, like individuals, and how you are as a kid creates who you are, but seeing the dynamic of the family and how he is and how I am, and how that again reflects on how we are as a family. And him being different, but going, okay, so he's very much, well, I guess he does sales, but he's really good on that. What are people's needs and desires, and understanding people as well is an interesting, but and it's come out, I don't know, to be honest, it's not something I've really explored in depth, so it's not something I am as eloquent, I guess, to express what it is, what the idea, but an interesting thing to kind of keep looking at.
And the Batchelor family household, your memories of it are happy? You pretty much pretty rounded family?
Yeah, really always. Cool. I guess when you say memories, the first thing that comes to mind is, and this kind of sums up, I guess, the family and my mum quite well, is Sunday evenings, the dinner goes in the oven, and then we go off swimming. And so we'd come back, we'd have a great time going swimming, but the dinner would be burnt. But it was always amazing jacket potatoes, because jacket potatoes, the longer you leave them in, the better they get, right?
Definitely.
So jacket potatoes on a Sunday night were always great, but it was very sporty, very active. I think me being quite creative was a bit of an oddball thing, and not oddball in a bad way, but the rest of my family, I guess, wouldn't describe themselves as creative, although I think they very much are in how they think about things. But I guess I express mine through art, whereas they're kind of more creative in their thinking and, you know, problem solving and stuff like that, and coming up with crazy sports games. So my mum was a PE teacher, and my dad teaches English as a foreign language, like still, but they both did hundreds of ski seasons and, you know, did the typical activity leaders and taking kids off to sport. But getting people out and about, it was, I think my life was very much, you tried everything. It was, try this sport, here's some pens, and, you know, going to, I guess, kind of challenges. When we went to a restaurant, and this was kind of before my brother came along, so it was just me. And if I was bored, I'd either have pens and be like drawing on the tablecloth or something, or it would be, why didn't you make a concoction? So I'd get all the random salt and pepper and leftover wine or whatever, make a concoction, and then go, here, come up. And my mum would drink it because I thought it would be a challenge. So just kind of, I guess, sums it up.
I think we need to get your mum on and talk about her uni days. That would probably be some good conversations there, I think. Yeah. Okay, sorry. So growing up, as you know, with your name, was that ever an issue? Were you called Liu as a kid in school?
Yeah.
You were? Okay.
Yeah.
Was that an issue for you? Was that, you know, did it mark you out as different or anything? Or
I never thought about it.
Cool.
No, it never. I think I was quite, I don't know, maybe I was naive, or maybe I just there wasn't that initial worry, and therefore it didn't become a bigger worry. You know, like normally when something becomes a thing that at school, it's because there's already an underlying concern. And I don't think I ever had an underlying concern, so it never became something. It was always a bit like, but not majorly. And to be honest, it was always like going to uni, it was always a talking point. People would remember that I was the one with the weird name, but they couldn't remember it. And I was like, don't worry, because they remember that they couldn't remember. So it was kind of nice. And it was a conversation starter. I had it written on my arm, like phonetically spelled. So no, I guess the only, like, I did sometimes think when it came to work and meeting people for the first time, and them not necessarily knowing who they were going to meet or who to look out for if you're kind of meeting someone at their office or something. But then it was never really a thing. I don't know. I never really looked into it really, and didn't allow it to be a thing, because I went, well, I love that. So.
Yeah, I love that. That's really interesting. I think, what I love about that is that it's just that, you know, point or issue that our identity, you know, once we kind of get into the world, it kind of goes before us a lot of places, you know what I mean? So, you know, it's like you're not there and you're you, but your name's out there and you're being possibly, maybe not, but possibly being judged, and possibly expectations about, you know, what that is. So that's really fascinating as well, that, you know, that idea or concept of identity is really fascinating, about how much of it is in your control, because we love to control things, don't we?
Yeah, I think it was something, I don't think it was conscious.
How much of it kind of...
Yeah, I don't think it was a conscious thing, but I guess I never, because like you said, it's out of your control. I guess I never dwelled on it or thought about it or gave it that energy to worry about it, because at the end of the day, people will interpret it, but one way or another, and what am I to do about it? You know, other than the odd thing of, I'll often set up email addresses with the I and the U the wrong way round, because people often get mixed up and I don't want emails getting lost, or, you know, maybe I should put a picture on my email. But I don't know, at the same time, if someone is going to be kind of judging someone on their name, then is that the sort of person you want to be working with anyway? So
I love that attitude. It's very stoical. There's a guy, I don't know if you know about this guy. There's a guy who my wife and I really just absolutely love. This guy. He's called Mike Gervais. He's an American guy. He's a high performance psychologist, and he's worked with Seattle Seahawks, American football team, and the guy that did the skydive from space and all that kind of stuff. He's really interested in resiliency and how, and grit, and how you cope with pressure and that kind of thing. And he says, but he's really also comes from a point of mindfulness. So it's really fascinating kind of fusion of West and East. One of his things that he says is, it's almost like a bedrock philosophy for him is, I love you, but I don't care what you think of me.
Yeah.
And it's really coming across as like your attitude is kind of like that, because you've got it seems to me you've got a lot of joy in your system, but you're kind of like, I'm cool with who I am as well,
Yeah, and that sounds very kind of similar to, I guess, a definition that I really like for love. And, a lot of people think of, be it a family kind of how you use love, or kind of relationships, partners. But I love the definition of love being accepting someone exactly as they are and exactly as they're not, because then you allow that person space to be who they are, and then you do love them. And it kind of came from, and it really rung true, because I know, in relationships where you start off accepting someone as they are and all their weird quirks, and then as you go through the relationship, kind of sometimes they then become annoying and you stop accepting them as they are. Or for example, I recognize myself in previous relationships going, when they're not happy, trying to make them happier, and which everyone goes, oh, well, that's a nice thing to do, but it's not, because you're trying to change them. Them being unhappy is not a good thing in your mind, because you're trying to change it. So then you end up not loving them in a purist kind of sense. You could say you're trying to get the best out of them, but you're also trying to change someone, and that whole whatever resists persists, and changing says you're not good enough. And I remember there's a particular kind of ex that I remember could see so much potential and trying to help him get it out. But also I looking back, I go, God, that must have been really hard for him, because he said, you're not good enough now. You're being lazy to your potential. And I was like,
whoever you are, I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing at that situation, because I totally recognize it. You know what, can I just say, this is really freaky, because because I've been doing this for a while, I'm writing down questions, and I steal questions from other people, because especially Mike Gervais, because he's so brilliant at what he does. But this is honestly true, I'm not making this up. A question that I wrote down and I showed my wife last week was, what is love? And I haven't had the courage to actually ask that to anybody. And I thought, today, because I haven't done an interview for a couple of weeks, I thought, I'm going to do that question today. I'm just going to throw it out there and see what happens. And you bloody well answered it even before I had a chance. Oh my God, I was blowing my mind. It's like, what's going on? Thank you for that. Thank you for reading my thoughts. So listen, take us through. I'm interested, because so that's brilliant what you've told us about, your kind of very normal childhood, but take us through to this real, so from that comes this amazingly, like relentless athlete that develops out of that, who is, just a mind-blowing where you have got to in your past. I've got no idea how old you are, but you don't seem very old to me, so I'm kind of thinking, wow, you've crammed in so much. But
take us my age, or no?
No, I'm not asking. I'm not asking. but take us through, how you get to a point, if you can, from kind of roughly where we kind of left it, to a point where you are, you're obviously competing, or whatever you did, at a really high level. You're obviously a professional model. I mean, where does that come from? Because that's the bit that really fascinates me. The backstory is just to kind of locate, and then I'm interested in why a person goes to the gym and works out for 2 hours, and you know what I mean. So can you take me through to that for that bit?
Yeah, I'm wondering where to start. I guess a lot of it probably was the progression or fallout, or I guess, I don't want to say coping strategy, but the default way of being based on this. I can't necessarily express my ideas, so I'm going to put them into action, right? And having a very sporty family, that sport was the obvious way. I kind of had this sport route, I had a creative art technology kind of route, but the sport was a very specific kind of tangible thing. So I guess with that, it was wanting to, I guess when I say, I guess I hated, when you know, when people say, right, we're going to do this, or when you, I don't know, I guess that was it. No, I've got it. I remember being told, someone threw away comment when I was 14, 15, of someone saying I was scatty. Like, it was someone I worked with in my first job in a cafe. And I remember taking that really to heart and going, I don't want to be scatty. I don't want someone to think, oh, I say something and then I don't do it. So again, another coping strategy of, right, well, if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. Right. And so dedication is probably a strength of mine, but it's also a weakness in, once I get hold of something, I can't quit. And I think I have quite an addictive personality when it comes to sport and projects. I tend to go, if I find something I love, I am suddenly hooked on it. It's like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I just have to go for it. And then I'll have it. And then it'll come a time where it feels like it's enough. And then I'll stop. And I tend to have a bit of where I do absolutely nothing. I guess motivation is the thing that I'm fascinated by.
Right.
How do we motivate ourselves? Because I found myself being incredibly motivated by certain things, but if I didn't have motivation, I couldn't do it. Like you say about the gym, so when I was training, I'm not kind of training properly now, there was no need for motivation because I just do it, right? And then when I came to a point and my mindset for it and my focus, my motivation shifted. Like, I've had about a year, I was like, I could not get myself in the gym for not love or money. And you go, yeah, but you're a really motivated person. I'm like, no, I'm motivated when I see a reason to do something. Like I said about the meaning, I added meaning, and therefore I can do something that I have put meaning on, and I can't do stuff I have no meaning for.
I love that. Wow.
So it was a bit of that, I guess, on a positive sense, because that's maybe why you have to stick at things, to kind of take it back and say, you know, at that first time when you first try something, I guess I'm fascinated with learning new stuff. Like, I love trying new things, particularly around sport, because I know I have a baseline capability to kind of jump into them. Right. And it was that learning new things I pick up, because I had a very sporty background, so we'd go and do loads of different sports. And so I would pick them up quickly, and then of course you feel good because you're like, oh, I'm pretty good at this already. And so, for example, with wakeboarding, I don't know if because you said about the bodybuilding and stuff, but growing up, I did hockey, skiing, snowboard, all this sort of stuff. Like, family was very into skiing, but you did all the school stuff and played hockey. But I think when I really found what felt like my sport was wakeboarding. When I was at uni, I was going to join the ski and snowboarding club. And someone from the wakeboarding club, I'd never done it before, and they went, well, if you can already ski and snowboard, why don't you try something new? I was like, that's a really good point. And I went along and tried it, and it was absolutely freezing. It was outdoors, and I loved it, like, instantly. And I picked it up because it was like snowboarding, and I was hooked. And it was like this, I think because I picked it up, it was like that competition with the guys as well. There weren't many girls doing it. And as a result, like, there were very few girls at all doing anything. And so I progressed quite quickly relative to the girls, and was like competing. So I got to the stage of competing for GB at wakeboarding. And then went to the Europeans, didn't do as well as I wanted. I kind of got in my head and messed it up because I was in my head. But that was probably my best achievement sports wise. But in the end, I was doing it, by that point, I was doing it because I had to do it. Like, I started off loving it, and I did love it, but I was doing it because I couldn't quit. Because I was like, you know, I hate saying it, it sounds really cheesy and really big-headed, but was leading the way at the time in what women were doing, right? Women weren't doing aerial tricks, and I started with a group of guy mates, and I was just doing what they were doing. I had no concept of women should or shouldn't do this or are or aren't able to. I was like, well, if he can do it, I can do it. But it got to this, but because I was competing at a good level, I was like, I can't just quit. But I was taking it too seriously and going, I have to keep progressing. And I got a first knee injury, because I was like, I have to keep learning new tricks. I have to keep up. I have to keep up. And then recovered from that and learn and gain so much from rehab. Like, I did my ligament in my knee, had like 6 months in a brace, but worked so hard on rehab, and kind of loved it because there was a reason to do it, whereas the reason for competing had kind of started to dwindle at that early stage. So the rehab and getting back was amazing, and I had an amazing season that year. But then the following one, when there was no injury, it wasn't so much of a challenge. And I guess it's, I don't know, a lot of people probably, it's a bit of a holistic way of looking at it, but I then did 2 years later, I did my knee in again really badly. So I broke my kneecap, tore my quad off the bone, and it was just awful in a competition. Airlifted out. It was very spectacular. And it was kind of like, it sounds crazy, but that was my get out. Like I couldn't quit. I wasn't going to let myself quit. And people go, oh, what, you're competing at top level. Why are you giving up, or why are you stopping? But I also didn't know what else I was going to do. And so boom, it was right after uni. I'd literally just graduated. So suddenly I don't have, this is my get out of doing the sport that I don't want to do anymore. And it's also something to do for the next 6 months, a year. Because I graduated, could do anything, but also had no idea, like most people do. They come out of uni, have no idea what they're actually going to do now. And you're out of the system, which is you go to school, then you do your A-levels, then you go to university, and then you go, now what? Someone tell me what now? And you go, no one's telling me. And so
you got to do it.
and so going, boom, have a knee injury, because I kind of weirdly enjoyed the process before. But
are you, can I just ask you a question? Because are you saying in a kind of roundabout way, and we both know that, you know, we're both of us probably kind of similar, but we don't want to say this is true because it sounds fluffy, but are you saying in a way you manifested a second knee injury? That's fascinating. That blows my mind. Not because it's like in any way fluffy, but it's like, it's just a mental paradigms that we get, you know, we kind of get into a way of thinking about the world, and then that becomes our world. And it's like, you know, it's almost like that sometimes the brain can't take it because it's, you know, it doesn't want that to be the way the world is, and it tries to find a way to sabotage that paradigm so it can get out of it. That's so amazing. Oh my god.
And there is actually, there's a guy like an amazing like holistic massage therapist that I've been seeing and know very well for a long time, and who essentially kind of combines Eastern and Western, a guy called Ben Barnett.
What's his name?
Ben Barnett.
Ben Barnett. I'm going to write it down. Yeah, cool.
And essentially looking at how our mental and emotional experiences are mapped in our body, right? And essentially, like chakras are, and different parts relate to certain emotions, but he kind of takes it one step further and into the muscles, and how your posture is, and where you get injuries is all a way of giving you an insight into your mind. And so seeing him like after my injury and going, oh, what do knees mean, blah blah blah. I was like, oh my, when I got injured, and just perfectly, I think so that's why I can speak quite clearly about it, because I've looked at it quite a lot with him. And fascinating looking at other like small injuries and going, I think because of this thing of like expression that we were talking about at the beginning, and because I'm a very physical active person, and I always kind of use sport and movement, and I move my arms around now, it always comes up whenever there's something I'm not quite clear in my head of, it starts to come out in my body. Like I'll have weird aches and pains, or I'll get a silly, it's not an injury, but it's like a little thing, and
a tweak.
And when I ask him, oh, what does this part of the body relate to? And he's like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh yeah, you just nailed it. That's exactly where I was at. You know, but you can't articulate it. And he says, oh yeah, it's this part means this. And silly injuries. Wow. I mean, even when so this is a crazy example. I was having it was a Friday, tired, went to the supermarket, went shopping, did my shopping, took the trolley back, or put the stuff in the car, went to take the trolley back, and I was like, right, come on, snap out of being in a bit of a low mood. So I was like, right, I'll jump on the back of the trolley and kind of, you slide, right? But there was no shopping in it, so I jumped on it, did a kind of Superman thing, and the trolley tipped, and I rolled really heavy on my shoulder, and the bit, and when I asked him afterwards, the bit that it related to was like, I was having, with work, I was kind of getting worried that, oh God, I'm not good enough, because I was kind of working I had a client that wasn't really an area that I was typically used to, and it was a referral from my dad, and my dad's amazing at what he does, and it was kind of I was trying to live up to him, and when he talked about all the stuff that part of my shoulder relates to,
Wow.
Oh my God, even silly things like falling off a shopping trolley told me something about what I wasn't dealing with emotionally, or was just exploring. And yeah, fascinating. It comes up, I have to be careful, because I will put myself into, I'll put myself into injuries, but I know that I've done it before, will make myself injured as an expression of something that I can't hear or say.
Yeah.
So
I love that. It's just brilliant. I just wanted to, I'm going to go with this because I just want to see where you go with it, because you're so, just listening to it is fabulous. But when you said something, and let's see if we can go deeper into it. You said were you at the Europeans with your wakeboarding, and you said, I got into my head about it. What can we just unpick that? What does that mean when you got into your head? So I'm not, it's not even necessarily the detail, but just the kind of feeling. What you know what I mean? However you want to answer it, though.
It was, well, basically I messed up my final run in the same, like you have snowboarders or gymnasts, you get 2 runs, and kind of, if you fall at any point, that's your whole run done.
Right. Yeah.
And I was nervous. I'd competed lots, but in UK, and this was my first European trip. And basically, I think looking at it now, what happened was I wasn't nervous all the way up to it, and I was quite relaxed. I was like, oh, okay, this is fine, I can do this. And then, but I was essentially bottling up the nerves and not dealing with them. And literally a few hours before the competition, it all hit me, and I got really nervous. And of course, by then it's kind of too late. You haven't dealt with it.
Wow.
So it was just not having your head in I guess maybe it was making it too significant with the competition, and it was my first time competing at that level. So, qualified, I think I qualified 3rd, and then in the end just kind of messed up my run, so just kind of came like last in my heat of 8. So it was like, and just it's the classic, it's the classic thing, like a footballer taking a penalty in a World Cup. They've taken penalties a million times before, and they just mess it up. And that's essentially what happened, because I didn't deal with the nerves. I thought the way to do it was to kind of suppress them. And
interesting. I love that. Thank you so much, because that's tough to talk about. I mean, I don't know if it's tough for you, but for that would be tough to talk about, possibly. Take us through, if you don't mind. So you've kind of gone through the wakeboarding, obviously high achiever there. Can you kind of bring us up to date? I mean, I don't know how long a part of that story is, but, I'm interested in, can you talk a little bit about, 100 sports in 100 days?
Yes. Okay.
Can you kind of track through to where you are now?
Okay, track through. Okay, so I broke my kneecap and tear my quad off the bone. Get into rehab, was really lucky to have a doctor who took me out of my knee brace after, because my full leg was in plaster, like I couldn't do anything, and he took me out after 2 weeks, which was the scariest thing ever, and put me in a brace and kind of very slowly gave me flexion bit by bit, and I was doing really well in my rehab, and then I slipped over in the supermarket and broke it a second time.
You didn't? Oh my God.
So it broke, first time it broke vertically, and I had a screw in it like that to hold it together, and it essentially just broke that way.
Oh my God.
I did, and I kind of had to go all the way back to square one and start over, but I knew what I was doing by then. So
this is old hat. I'm like,
yeah, exactly right. You go, okay, right, we just go back to the start, and
the knee girl, how you doing? Come here. We got a bed for you.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
And for example, things like when you've got your whole leg in plaster, it's really hard to just get out of the bed and go to the toilet, for example.
Yeah, sure.
I was so flexible and maneuverable, and like, yeah, I literally picked my foot up and put it where I wanted it to go, and I could get around on crutches and the whole lot. So yeah, they were a bit like, oh, you're very good at this.
Yeah, I'm an expert.
Yeah, so recovered. That was probably about a year or so, kind of, you know, before I could properly get back. But rehabbed really. This is one of my pet hates, I guess, is people not going, but that going to physiotherapy and doing your exercise regularly. You can come back from horrendous injuries and still get back into sport if you're dedicated. So recovered from that, but as I was getting back into the day-to-day, like, okay, I can get around, and I could maybe do a little bit of running, but I knew that my one leg was kind of like this, and one leg was like massive. So I know from previous injuries, you've got to correct imbalances. I could do the sport, but I knew long term it would start affecting my hips. So that's where the bodybuilding came in, because I went, oh, okay, well, I'll go to the gym and I'll start training, because I had to anyway. And then rehab naturally progressed into doing the gym more. And because I'm competitive and have to have a reason to do things, I went, oh, I wonder whether I could get up on stage, because just correcting the imbalance in my legs for the sake of it, that's not motivating. But going, it's because bodybuilding is all about symmetry, so I have to sort that leg out if I'm ever going to get up on stage and compete. And then just got into it and got hooked. And because I used to dance as a kid, not like to any level, I guess another image of how I was at 5, it was me kind of like just dancing around the front room. And so I loved that feeling of being on stage. And again, it's that self-expression that I couldn't do through my words, I did through dance. And there was something in me that went, I kind of want to be on stage again. And so that's where the kind of wanting to do the bodybuilding and being able to feel inside me that when you step out, that nerves and excitement of being on stage, that propelled me to do the get through the rehab, do the training. And again, it was my strength, but kind of my learnt strength of being dedicated and being focused.
Right.
And bodybuilding is the perfect thing for that. If you want to get that sense of satisfaction from dedication, you get what I mean? Like, I think kind of go slightly off course a little bit, but I think that when it comes to so for example, New Year's resolutions and people going, right, they're going to go to the gym, they don't want necessarily, they may do the results of the gym, like losing weight, being fitter, being healthier. That's part of it. But the other bit they want is the feeling of being dedicated, the feeling that I said I'm going to do something and I do it. Because that feels, you can trust yourself then, right? Like, you know, if you said to someone, a friend, right, can you do this for me? And you know that no matter what, they'll do it. For both of you, that feels really good. But we often don't have that relationship with ourselves. We let ourselves off the hook. But it feels really good to trust ourselves and trust our word. And so I felt that. And I think that's why people set New Year's resolutions, not for the outcome, but for the feeling of, this year I'm going to be honest with my word and hold myself to account. So that's kind of what that was, and competed. I won like a couple of regionals and went to the nationals. I never won the nationals, and that's where it kind of got to the stage where I kind of came to the end of it for me. Was the bodybuilding, even though, you know, it's meant to be a lot, especially with women, there's a kind of a line, and it's like, you know, obviously with kind of taking steroids and things like that, that was never something I wanted to do, and I never wanted to become big and muscly in that sense. I wanted to be athletic and kind of, I guess, just make the best of my shape and my frame. But the category I was in, which was you essentially looked athletic. You didn't look, I think a lot of people think, oh, bodybuilding, oh, you must be massive. It's like, no, I just looked like an athlete. And, you know, like the runners look, you know, like the sprinters look, or a gymnast looks, but more, but just with that conditioning. A little bit of definition, and they, depending on the kind of the federation, it can start to cross into, you know, taking stuff to make to kind of progress. And I was like, this isn't the game I want to play anymore. I've got to my max. I found it very hard to put on muscle. I had a good natural shape and natural frame, but spent 4 years and didn't really gain that much size, but it was a great experience. So that's kind of, it went, you know what, I'm kind of just done now. I really enjoyed it, wouldn't change it, but I've achieved what I wanted to, and the meaning that I would now have to put on it is not for me. So
you've I mean, I'm going to kind of make this up a little bit because that's what we do with our stories. But I'm going to suggest this to you, and then you take it where you tell the truth. But you know, you've since then, it seems you've fused that kind of physicality and that kind of natural athlete and that dedication to do something. You fused that with something else that is in you. And it's maybe what you said earlier on. You said there's the kind of like, there's the expression through the body and there's the expression through the mind. And it's in, would it be fair to say that you've found now, or however long that period is after you stopped competitively bodybuilding, that now it's become, it's that dedication, but now there's this social purpose, it seems that you have. There's this, there's something inside, because you really shine in terms of wanting to, you have this thing going, the big ideas, and you know, you did this 100 sports in 100 days for charity, raising money. Can you talk about that turn that you've taken?
Yeah, it was, I guess, I remember with the wakeboarding, and I think maybe less so with the bodybuilding, but it's still there to an extent, was this, and it was the same when I used to paint. It was always about wanting to inspire other people, right? And thinking, I guess I thought that if I do it, I set the example, then I'll inspire other people.
Right.
But there's also a bit of, so that was where that came from, but it was, I do it, and then other people will see it and go, oh, I can do that too. But there was also that concern of people going, you're showing off, or I could never do that. And then the more you try and improve, the more you separate yourself from other people, rather than connect with them necessarily. And I guess it was that being addicted to that, you know, you get a new idea and you're like, oh my God, that'd be so exciting. And then when you start doing it, it's exciting, and that energy. And then it kind of runs out, but it comes from that initial idea for yourself. But I was always chasing that. And then I guess over time, through teaching other people, and you know, I enjoyed helping other people with wakeboarding and in the gym, and realizing I could get that same buzz of, oh my God, that's a great idea. That I then, because you know how I said about having to not be scatty, so I had to do what I said if I said I was going to do it, and realizing that was a lot of effort to try and maintain this feeling that came up when a new idea comes up, and also try and prove that I wasn't scatty, meant that I was freaking working really hard and breaking my knee and like dedicating every hour of the day to kind of training or not going out, making sure I was well rested for that feeling. And then realizing you can kind of get more and pinch it. Kind of sounds, you can pinch it off other people. Helping other people find their thing allows you to feel it, but you don't, you help them, so you get it and they get it, and when they're buzzing, you're buzzing even more.
I love it. And
also you don't then have to do it. Realizing I can give myself a bit of a break and know that I've contributed. And my aim through all of it was always to inspire other people, to inspire myself as well, but to inspire other people. And it was a lot easier to inspire them by helping them find that feeling for themselves than me having to do it and them see me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And that's
cool. That's absolutely cool. I mean, wow, so much. I've completely lost track of time, but don't worry, that's just that's me being caught up in the moment. Totally. There's so much. Oh my God, I wish we had 2 hours. I better move on, because there's so much I want to talk to you about. But you know, maybe we'll come back and we'll do Liu part 2. Maybe we'll do that at some point in the future.
Sounds good.
Because there's so much there that's really, really interesting. But you know, anyway, I'm going to throw some questions at you, if you don't mind. So we're going to kind of go in a different direction. I think one of the questions I will start with is, how do we thrive? And I kind of think we've done that, but if you want to, is there anything that comes to mind, like in terms of succinctly that if I say, how do you thrive, but how do humans thrive? What's human thriving to you? Is that something that you can address?
Yeah, I guess thrive isn't, I've become quite fascinated with the etymology of words, and thrive, I'm really thinking about the word thrive because it's not a word I normally use, but I guess maybe if it was, how do I now, in this present kind of where I'm at now, achieve things and keep focused? And for me, it comes down to learning. If I feel, if I'm learning something in a situation, well, that's it. If I'm not learning something, I often struggle to do it and to stay focused for too long. And it's really, I think I did it anyway, but I've become a lot more aware and started looking at it in a more practical kind of sense, growth mindset and looking for the learning. And I do that a lot, is right, what am I looking to learn here rather than what am I looking to achieve? And then whatever the outcome is an extra, because in yourself you've gained something. So you can create positive out of every situation then. So I say you look for the learning. That's where you can thrive, because no opportunity or no thing or obstacle is ever bad then.
Right. Yeah, God, that's good. You can, we have this thing that we try to talk about, which is everything is your life. Every part of your life, even the crappy bits, are your life. That so you can't pretend to live wait to live when it's good and then shut down when it's bad. And everything's potentially something to learn from, even the rubbishy bits. So that's beautiful. I love that. Okay, Liu Batchelor, what are we doing here?
That's a big question. The first thing that comes to mind is it's all an accident. And it's not anything. There is no meaning to anything, but putting meaning on things makes it enjoyable. But as soon as that meaning doesn't serve you, either like me with the wakeboarding, I had to put too much meaning on it, then that's when you go, oh yeah, actually, I made this up. There is no meaning. Choose another meaning. Throw that one out the window. Choose another one that does serve you. So I think realizing there is no meaning can be quite an empty place. And therefore you're not focused on anything, but putting meaning on it can create the life we want. But we are totally able to choose that meaning.
I love that. Oh my God.
I don't know whether that was the answer to the why we're here, but
you know what? It doesn't matter. It's just good. Leo, do you know who you are?
No, because I know who I was yesterday and the day before, but going back to the learning, if I knew who I was, I wouldn't be learning anymore, and then I'd be dead, because for me, that learning is the important bit. So no, and I like not knowing, because that's the meaning I like to put on is, I wonder who I am, or I wonder who I can be, or I wonder how I work, or how do I motivate myself? I don't know. I know in this moment that's just passed, but I don't know in the next moment. So
got it.
No. And even and even in the past, you don't know. You know what you know, and then someone can ask you a question, you're like, oh my God, yeah, I did that because of these things. Oh my God, I never knew that. So you start to know yourself a bit, but you know part of it, a tiny percentage probably.
Okay, that's it's so good. It's so good. Okay, I've got some sentences, and I want you to complete them or fill in.
Okay.
Yeah. Pressure comes from
resisting. Resisting what is.
That's so good. Wow. I love that.
I don't know whether I would live at that, but
it's tough. But that's a great answer to that question. Wow, that's the first time anybody said that. I love that. The truth is
what you make it. In that there is no, I don't believe in truth or right and wrong. There's just, again, the meaning that we put on it, and it's still just all created in our head. So the truth doesn't exist. It's all an interpretation.
Cool. Wow. In the end, it all comes down to
what you learn and what you. Yeah, I guess it's how you felt. Yeah, my answer was to what you learned, but I think that's because that's what we were talking about. But all it comes down to is what you felt.
Wow, I love that. Yeah. That's so good.
Sounds a bit woolly, that one, but
no, that's so good.
Because that's all we do things for, isn't it? We use work or we use hobbies as a way of feeling a certain way, and at the end of the day, we just find, you know, the wakeboarding made me feel a certain way, and then it stopped making me feel that way. So I got rid of it and went, right, that doesn't work anymore. What's the next tool that is going to enable me to feel what I want to feel in that particular moment? So.
That's so good. Given the chance, I would.
Something's coming up for me about, it's probably not going to fit the question necessarily, but
it's
kind of go away. Like, given the chance, I'd break the mold, my mold, and it's something we're always working on. I guess I kind of wanted to say I'd go on holiday, because I'm so focused on work and what I'm doing all the time. I don't ever just do nothing and chill out. And going on holidays is quite hard for me because there's no reason to do it. But I'm also I'm currently looking at, getting present to the impact that that's having on me and my life. And I want to break that mold, or be able to be free from that I have to be working all the time, or you know, it's not work, but doing this, I have to be serious in this. I mean, even though I call this sort of serious in that sort of sense. So I'd break my own mold and get away and be able to kind of be carefree, not be thinking about everything.
I love it.
That a lot.
Okay, so not a lot of people know this, only a few people that I've interviewed, but not only am I, you know, not very good at much apart from kind of vaguely writing a few things and maybe a bit of poetry and some fluffy thinking, but I've developed a small time machine.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got it and I'm going to let you have it, but it only works for a minute. It's completely safe, so don't worry. I'd love you to go back. I want to send you back to see Liu Batchelor about, I don't know, pick an age, but I want to send you back to your childhood just for a minute. Yeah. And you can talk to her. Would you mind sharing what you might say to her, Liu?
Is it at any age or particular moment, are you thinking?
Pick whatever you want.
I should listen to my own advice now with this, but I kind of want to say, tell myself not to try so hard.
Wow.
But this is kind of coming up as a conflict for me, because I'm like, but I enjoy working hard. I guess that's what I'd say. I'd say continue to work hard, but know that it has no meaning. It doesn't matter. You work hard because you choose to work hard, rather than working hard because you have to. You don't have to. People are still going to love you the way you are, whether you try hard or not. So use it, work hard while it works for you, and as soon as it stops working for you, give yourself a break from it.
Oh my God, I love that. That's so good.
And I'm telling myself that now as well.
Yeah, totally. But I think that's the thing. I think, you know, we have a society where we're conditioned to kind of look outside ourselves to make ourselves complete or to make ourselves happy. We're looking, and we're actually all right. I think we do so much to try and fix what we think is broken. We're not broken. We're fine.
Yeah.
In here. That core.
Definitely.
Leo, is there anything else?
Not that. Was that a question I meant to finish, or was that just a general question?
Whatever.
No, nothing. No, nothing comes to mind.
Okay, that's good. That's
with no preconceptions or right, I want to get this across. It's just to kind of listen and respond.
I love it.
So yeah, I haven't prepared anything, or no, so nothing.
It can be philosophical. It can be really practical. It's whatever you want, you know.
Oh, okay. Okay, this the thing that I'm exploring at the moment as a general thing is this idea of speaking your life into being, into reality.
Wow.
And learning for me to do less but create it through speaking. And I guess what it comes down to is, I guess a lot of people could say, oh well, I do, you know, if I'm trying to make an idea happen or do a project, then I go and talk to people. But I guess what I mean maybe is, it's very common, isn't it? And this is what I do. We have all those thoughts and ideas in our heads, and we don't say them out loud until they make sense, until we've worked them out. But they never come out like they are in our head anyway, and we can never get them clear in order to say them. So I guess when I say speak your reality, I guess I'm saying use speaking as a way of understanding yourself and your thoughts and what's in your head.
Wow.
And I've always been concerned that sometimes I'll open my mouth and it will come out like gobbledygook, and you have to have a massive long conversation in order to get one point across. But kind of going, that's all right, you know, not in all situations. If someone says you've got a 2-minute pitch, go, you can't do it then. But I guess finding those people around you who you can brain dump to speak it into action, I guess and that being okay that it comes out wrong and badly and sounds awful, because I found the more you say it, the more it refines in the speaking that you maybe wouldn't have done in thoughts. And secondly, what was the other thing? That was it. You know when you have an idea and you kind of get that feeling inside of excitement, and there's a new level, there's a different level of feeling and that allows you to understand what you're saying or what your idea is by speaking it. So certain words, for example, when I talk about inspiration, I use that word a lot, and it creates the feeling.
Right.
And I find that by speaking, and you'll say it one way, a certain thing one way, and it won't feel right. And that tells you, okay, there's something that's not right about that. And then you share it again and maybe describe it in a different way, and you'll find yourself getting excited and energized or clear or whatever the feeling is that you want. So using speaking to feel a certain way. Does that make sense? And like finding the words that work for you. So like when you said thrive, like I said, that's not a word that I normally use, but using the word inspiration and learn, and that creates the feeling that ultimately it's all about anyway. So speaking to understand the feelings of your ideas as well as the practicalities and the words of it.
Yeah. Wow. It's been so fantastic. Wow. I just, you know, I think if you're watching this, if you happen to see it, you know, check Liu's big ideas. We haven't even talked about that, and I feel really bad because I've already talked about
That's fine. That's cool. That's the part 2, right?
That's definitely the part 2. We're going to devote a whole conversation to the big ideas, because that would be so good to talk about. But this has been brilliant, just to find out kind of something about you and just the way you see the world and everything.
And
one more thing,
because it's been really like normally I'm the one doing the interviewing, and like you kind of going, I'm fascinated by other people and how they work, and not often getting the chance to speak myself. And then when you do, you go, oh yeah, actually I am a lot clearer than I thought I was. But until I speak it, I'm not able to check myself.
Of course,
You're giving me the opportunity to speak.
You're very welcome.
And like you learning kind of about how I work, I'm learning about how I work in
exactly.
So
yeah, it's brilliant. One last thing, your song, your piece of music. Is it any song, or is there any more context you can give me? Because like I'm having a few pop into my mind. Go. Pick one.
I've got three in my mind. Can I tell you?
Say them all. Say them all. Say them all.
Okay. So one would be LaRue, the screen remix of the LaRue song "In for the Kill."
Right.
Because when that drops, it's like no other reason than it's just an amazing song, and
Yeah.
it always makes me feel really like feeling out of nowhere. The second one was Florence and the Machine, You've Got the Love, because that was, she played at my grad ball, and brilliant. I had my leg in plaster. I'd had lots of coffee and painkillers, which I found actually make you quite happy. And so that was a really positive experience, even though
I'm losing you. I'm losing you. Oh no! I can't believe it.
I just my leg in and didn't know what I was going to do, but it was like, no, this. Okay. The microphone's still going. Are we good?
Yeah, we're still here. Sorry, I think someone thinks we're finished. I think, and they've jumped on playing PS3 or something like that.
Oh, okay. No worries.
What was the third one? Quickly.
Oh, and the third one was Anything by DJ Shadow, like the introducing album by DJ Shadow. All of that is so
brilliant.
And yeah.
Listen,
just amazing.
listen. Is it all right if I tag the Big Idea link under the when I put this? Might not come out for a few weeks, but I'll let you see it before, and just to make sure it's okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being brilliant and amazing. And it's people like you that are just make my heart think that actually the world's not such a bad place. Do you know what I mean? And we the next generation could be all right. I mean, you know, that sounds a bit patronizing. I don't mean it like that, but you know what I mean? We're in good hands if there's people like you around. So, you know,
thank you. Well, and thank you. It's all the stuff I said about kind of learning and growth mindset. That's like you asking me those questions and being interested in my answers is what enables me to speak. So it's the speaking has come from your listening as well.
That's brilliant. I love that. Thank you so much, Liu. And I'll catch up with you at some point.
Sounds good.
All the best. Thank you. Yeah, and you. Bye. Bye.